Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Pulver.
Welcome to Grateful Goddesses. Welcome home. We've all been in our homes a lot more these past few months, whether we've been working at home, school from home. Perhaps you're an empty nester, but you're no longer an empty nester at home. This has given us all a new perspective on our homes, not just a shelter, which of course we all are so grateful for, but realizing our homes mean much more. They're a reflection of ourself, our families, memories that you've created or that you're going to create, where we can live and learn and love. We have now looked more closely at our walls. I mean, I can't tell you how many days I've sat there and just sort of looked at the wall or looked at a picture or cleaned out a closet. So it's now time for us to step inside. And perhaps you've purged. Perhaps you've gone through every single corner of your home and gotten rid of stuff. Or you've done the opposite and you've gone on Amazon and you've ordered things, that throw pillow or that sham. So perhaps you're feeling tired of being in your home, or you've had a newfound appreciation of your home. Whether you're in a studio apartment or a big giant mansion, now you've had time to go within and explore how you feel. So let's now, listeners as well as viewers, think of a space in your home that you've discovered that you've now been quarantining in. And think about a place that you've discovered where you felt good, where you felt balanced, where you felt calm. As that is how your home should be. It's a reflection of you. So let's all get comfy in our homes, in our spaces, and we're going to talk about it. How does your home reflect your style, your passions? Are there places where you find warmth and comfort? Are you collecting junk or tchotchkes like I do? I constantly have tchotchkes, I call them, in my home that I collect. Our guests today are design goddesses that will guide us through their passions and that they align with their home design and their style. Georgeann Rivas and Stephanie Wirth, the founders of Leo Deigns in Chicago, will answer our questions on what we can do to that blank wall or how to help you figure out your design style to make your home a place that you love to be. Leo Deigns Limited is a full-service design firm specializing in residential interiors and was founded almost 2 decades ago by 2 Chicago residents, Georgeann Rivas and Stephanie Wirth. Their ability to work closely with clients and hone in on their desired aesthetic allows Leo Deigns to create varied and refreshingly original spaces. The unifying thread in each project is their unwavering attention to detail. From the onset of each project to completion, no design element is neglected. Naturally, we devote a considerable amount of time to interior architecture. What distinguishes us is the attention we give to the finishing touches and the layering of accessories which we feel give the home soul, says Rivas. After all, Leo Deigns believes that a home should provide a glimpse into the owner's psyche by showcasing their personal style. Consequently, the firm's aesthetic is as varied as its clientele. Both agree that the most gratifying part is exceeding their clients' expectations. Interior design is about enhancing people's lives, says Wirth, and that really is our primary goal. Welcome, Stephanie Wirth and Georgeann Rivas from Leo Deigns. Welcome, Stephanie and Georgeann, to the show.
There.
Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Georgeann.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're very happy to be here.
So I see your Zoom room, both of you. Stephanie, can you describe your Zoom room? Which room in your home are you in?
Lab, but I have chaotic household, and so I'm in my office. I'm in our office, and behind us, we love our lions, Leo Deigns. So we've got these big sliding doors, and behind them is a huge mess. It's all our inventory of our fabrics and so forth. So this is where I've been doing a lot of my client Zoom calls as well, because it's a simple backdrop.
But it looks like a lot of light is, do you have a skylight? It looks like a lot of light is coming.
We have a skylight, so it's really nice.
Oh, I love the light. It's natural light. I love it. And Georgeann, how about you? What's your Zoom room?
I'm in my living room.
And you too are a favorite of white, I see.
We work so much with color and fabric and pattern that it's always nice to come to a serene backdrop for sure.
I think one thing both of us share too is we love applied molding.
I can see that. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, Georgeann's home is very Parisian, and we kind of tried to take this loft space of our office and kind of create that same ambiance. And we added really tall panels of applied molding, and it really transformed the space.
It's funny because for me, I just don't feel like I'm a design goddess. I just need help. I need help. I need paint color help. I need, when we were furnishing our living room and I went to Mig and Tig, which is no longer around, but at the time, my husband and I walked in and I looked at a corner of the store, and it was set up with the coffee tables, the couches, and I said, I just want to buy that. I like how they did it. I'll just do that. And that's how I did it. I wasn't even I was too nervous to kind of realize what my style was. I just kind of looked at someone else's style, and that what was in my living room. It still is. So it's time to refresh, but that I'm going to ask you about. But first I want to ask you about your passion to do what you do. So Georgeann, I know that you had said that when you were younger, you used to go with your artist mother to antique stores and galleries. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I grew up, my mom would paint with oils, and she actually taught art when I was young. And I just got really inspired by, she had a passion for making the home beautiful. So when we were young and she had 3 kids, she probably didn't have this huge budget to do everything she wanted, and we'd find things at estate sales. And from a young age, I just got hooked. Stephanie will attest that I spend most of my weekends at estate sales. I mean, the thrill of the hunt is, I might be at 10 stores in any day. Stephanie and I went to a beautiful store yesterday to end our day and just got so inspired. I just love to be around, cool pieces and see great artwork, and not to digress to what you were saying, but I think you're a goddess in so many ways that maybe you can't have everything. You're such an amazing parent, wife, friend to everybody. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is amazing right now. And what you did several years ago when you did the other goddess program, I thought everybody derived a lot of
you came to some of those, didn't you?
Yeah, I came to several of them. Yeah, and I just really admired how everyone thinks of doing cool things like that, and expanding your knowledge, and you went out there and did it and doing this. I'm really proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Model on the side, so you got a lot going.
Okay, you're very sweet, but I want to know from you. I'm going to direct it back to you.
Okay.
With your passion, a lot of times, no, thank you for that, truly. But sure. There's things that we want to do when we're younger, and you seem to stay on that track.
I think I really did, and I also have such appreciation for beauty and people and nature and art and interiors. So Stephanie and I, when we met in college, we both kind of had our own groups of friends, but we would meet and go to the bookstore and pour over European magazines, and then we models, and we follow models, right. And we just had our own little niche of things that we were interested in that was maybe separate from our friend group. So I was friends with Stephanie's friends and she was friends with mine, but I think we both have had just such an appreciation for all things beautiful, and have made that kind of into a business.
I didn't know that you met in college. So Stephanie, you're from Vienna, correct?
Yes, I was born in Germany, and then my extended family, a lot of them are still in Vienna, Austria. So I think I just, I've always loved the juxtaposition of the really authentic old bones with the modern. And my mom collected crazy amounts of antiques. We would go to flea markets and auctions, and I would at the time sometimes think it was boring, but I would love to people watch. And now it's so funny because I've kind of become her, and I would always ask her to, because I was more modern and minimalistic in my approach, and she's like more is more kind of person. So I would always ask, can I rearrange this room? If you take this out, it'll look better, you know. So I would always be rearranging all the time. And I remember when I was probably like, I think I was like a freshman in high school, and I thought, God, I'm going to be in a magazine one day. I just want to have a house in a magazine one day. And I remember thinking like that, but I've always also loved fashion so much. So it was sort of like fashion, art, beauty, like Georgeann said. And I think, you know, I'm touched by different people, by travel, which is kind of a hard thing now with COVID because we're not able to do that. But you just have to find your inspiration where you can now. And I think that Instagram is incredible because you can go down that rabbit hole so quickly.
Right. It's amazing, though, that you said that you saw yourself in magazines, because I was looking, you have been in many magazines, both of you, Best Kitchen, Modern Luxury Interiors Magazine, 2019, Luxe Magazine, Home in Lakeview, Modern Luxury, 2015, Crane, Chicago Tribune, Martha Stewart, Stephanie, Your Son's Room, Playroom.
Sort of a funny thing. That was just a small thing. It was really, so my house, just so everybody knows, is like, you know, not at all like my clients. It's very much like I was telling you, where now I'm not so charmed by it in a lot of ways, but it is definitely an older home that has plaster walls. So I'm drawn to imperfections where a lot of my clients don't love the imperfections in the walls or whatever. So my home has a lot of that old bones quality to it. And, you know, I would say that I love that feeling when something's more authentic. Now I lost my train of thought of what the question was.
Oh, no. I was just saying that your son's Playroom, which was black and white and then red, a little red to it.
I will touch on that. I think I'm a child at heart. And so I also always wanted to own a children's store. So I had so much fun with my son's rooms. And because his bedroom was so small, an adjoining little sunroom, I turned it into his playroom. And I think at the time it was Cookie Magazine came, and then they went under or something, and then Martha Stewart called, and that the same editor was there and said, can I feature your story? So it was really fun. I'm childish. Georgeann will attest to this. Like, I have a pantry. I'm very sleek, but then you open my pantry and I've collected like vintage Haribo packages from France, and small vintage toys, and a neighbor who you know has given me some vintage Pez containers. So I really am drawn to children's things, and I still have them, and now my son is 17. Right. But I find a way to display them where it's not, you know, right in your face, but in secret places, because it just brings me joy.
Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today is you know, when you're in your home, and we've been in our homes now for a while, and it's really given us a chance to think about what home means to us. I mean, we come home at the end of the day, you know, or we're in our home for all of the day now, working and, you know, remote schooling. So it's really given us a chance to think about our style. And with that, I want to invite our featured goddesses on, because we all have questions about style. So we have questions. So we're going to start. Alyssa, you have a question, a design question for Georgeann and Stephanie.
I do. So, you know, given that we're home all the time these days, and that design is really meant to enhance your lives, our own lives, I wonder, you know, what your clients are asking for, what you're doing to sort of, you know, enhance people's homes sort of in the COVID era. Obviously having a really good workspace. We've talked about kind of where we're all sitting today and where we're doing these sort of Zoom calls, but a dedicated home office space, I would think, is key on your client's list of, you know, what they're looking for. And my follow-up sort of closely related question to that is like trends. You know, what are you seeing now as kind of, what are some of your favorite trends? Whether it was sort of started pre-COVID or, you know, just now looking into the future.
So Georgeann, do you want to answer that?
Oh, sure. We started getting calls from the first day of lockdown and everyone being in their house, that people were doing their Zoom meetings with their clients and whatnot, and everyone wanted to have their background spruced up. So I had, you know, we started ordering wall coverings for people. planning gallery walls. And then everybody needed a dedicated office for studying, or so lots of desks and more comfortable chairs. And then also people, because they were staying at home, were just looking around their house for projects. They knew they weren't going to be able to travel probably for a while, so they had bigger budgets maybe to work on their house. But I would advise people maybe to start with editing at their own home, and then shopping in your house too. But I think you really, to get a good result, you've got to kind of take away before you can start putting more interesting and cooler things in the house, so you really can see what you have and live with what brings you some joy. But trends, I think people are really trying to live in their house for themselves, as opposed to, I think a couple of decades ago, people were kind of trying to showcase their house as, you know, I'm successful, this is what I've got, and maybe a little flashier. I feel like everything's gotten warmer as a trend, like a little more bohemian look is in, collected, everything not so of one look, but I think a little more casual too. I think some of the things that were really appealing that we did a ton of 15 years ago were a little more sheen in fabrics, drapes that were a little flashier. And now I think everybody wants to be more relaxed and real. And I think that's a current that's happening in a lot of different ways besides just your home. I think people are letting the facade down a little bit. So I still do like to do beautiful work, but I think it's a little more authentic and not as flashy as it used to be.
Stephanie, do you want to add to that?
I think that's true. I think it's not as stiff. I think, well, I'm going to touch on this home office question too, because we live in the city, and I think oftentimes, you know, we don't have the space for that, where you thought you know, your husband or wife, or if you have your rooms already set up a certain way. So I think the trick is kind of like, I helped somebody recently and I said, you know, think unconventionally now. And maybe I found a vintage desk for someone, put it at the end of their bed, and it ended up looking really charming. And then they work from there, and they, you know, I said, I was burn a candle, get flowers. And I think you just have to kind of adjust with that. And for smaller rooms, I've done desks that are actually affixed to the wall. You know, when you don't have a lot of room, like in my son's room, I added a desk in there because obviously with schooling and so forth, it's really hard to find that space, especially if you have more than one child and you want to make sure they can concentrate. So I think you can be a little creative and also treat different pieces of furniture like desks, even if they weren't chosen for that purpose. You know, I buy dining tables for a lot of people and use them as desks because they're really big and you can spread out. And then to touch on trends, I totally agree with Georgeann. I'm actually helping a close friend, and she, you know, has editing issues. So I do agree with Georgeann. Like, I think the first thing to do, and I've noticed a lot of people are doing that, is they're kind of going through their closets and going through their things and editing. And I think that is really where you can kind of see your home clearly too, because I think even myself, like, I'm running around so much that I don't really notice. And now we're noticing, oh my gosh, I have this pile of magazines here I haven't looked at. I've got this and that, you know, and editing helps see your home clearer. And trend wise, I agree with Georgeann. I feel like those formal rooms are no longer, and everybody is very much looking for comfort in their furnishings. And paler floors are coming in now, very pale and raw, like driftwood tone floors. Georgeann and I are both working on projects. We're doing like a similar kind of light aesthetic for people. And I think, you know, I think Georgeann and I, what we pride ourselves on most is really listening to our clients. And even if you don't know your style, like Karen, you were saying, I don't know what my style is, but so oftentimes you can see it in how you dress or how you react when you go to a restaurant or a public place, and something like a Ralph Lauren. Everybody's always drawn to Ralph Lauren restaurant because there's a coziness in that library feel. So I think we all have to kind of figure out, like, where do we feel really good and how can I kind of incorporate that look in my own home? I know for me, it's my library, and I know, Karen, it looks like you're in your office or library as well. I think it's like the center of my home, and it's where I have all my collections that you'll see later, some of my favorite things. So don't be afraid to think big and look at the magazines, look at those editorials. Don't worry about budget so much, because you can create a look just through paint itself and create this really moody vibe in your home. So I think it's really important to kind of reflect on where you feel good. Does a lighter space make you feel good? Or does a moodier place. Like I think we all have different moods as we go through our lives. Like we want to feel kind of like moody in a library, and then we want to have a serene sleeping space. So, I think that everybody can have beauty, and now there's so many great sources that aren't expensive, and so much more is accessible for mainstream people. It used to be designers could only find certain things, and I think now everybody can find it on Instagram. Is an amazing source to be inspired by, especially now that we can't travel. So I would say, with office and so forth, we all have to adjust, obviously, but create a really haven for yourself. Like I've lit candles, you get yourself flowers, create beauty in this space in this hard time for yourself, and try to pamper yourself as much as you can, because it is a hard time. I don't know. So that's just sort of what I've been doing a little bit more of, like getting my fresh flowers.
Alyssa does usually have fresh flowers behind her. She's
not in my typical space right now, but I always try to have flowers in my background.
And we forget
that feels so much better.
We forget to take care of ourselves as goddesses.
Flowers,
we really do.
I see some yellow flowers.
Oh, those are not real.
Okay.
Those are from my preschool classroom, but
I love it.
I brought them home, but it's interesting because the desk that I'm working at is my late Eric's grandmother's dining room table that
I love it. Oh, wow.
We had in our dining room for the longest time, but we weren't sure what to do with it. It was in our basement, and then I said, let's bring it up as a desk. So it's beautiful, and it just
fun too. It's like I've lacquered desks before. Like if the finish doesn't match the roof, don't be taken back by that. Right. You can have it also. Car paint is a wonderful thing to lacquer with because it's very durable. Our conference table was lacquered in car paint, so I just feel like that's, look what you did. Like, and it also has a history for you too.
Yeah.
And you're keeping it. You're not getting rid of it. That's great.
No. Yeah, we're keeping it here. And Dina, what is your question for our design goddesses today?
Hi. So I have a question kind of just to what you guys were speaking about. I want to redo my entire house. This COVID has definitely put me in that mindset when I'm looking around at everything, but I have some pieces that have good bones, right? So my couch, for example, was sort of done and fits in this space perfectly, but it's time to redo it. It needs restuffing. It needs, all of that. And same with like a dining room table. I'd love to lacquer it. How do you assess if it's worth putting the money into redoing what you have, or do you start fresh, or combination of that? And I don't really know what to do with these pieces, or if I should invest more money in them or start over.
I mean, I can answer that. I think I love this question because it happens all the time, and I'm actually doing a lot of this right now. I have a client that had this kind of sculptural settee we purchased for years ago, and to Georgeann's point earlier, it was a little more fussy in style, more feminine in a way. People are more streamlined a little bit and more transitional these days. So it just depends. Like, I feel like sometimes it's better to start fresh. Honestly, you might end up spending like maybe $500 more to get something new. And there's a lot of great sources like Cherish and, for Stibs and so forth. And if you don't want to get something brand new, and there are a lot of great sales, but if it's sentimental and you love the shape, I think shape is key. And the size obviously has to work in the space. If the shape is unique and special and you feel like it has history and it's meaningful, absolutely recover it. And there are great people out there that could restuff. I just had a sofa I've had for a long time restuffed, and it really, really came back to life. So, fabric, when you recover and so forth, fabric can add up. Like you might end up needing 16 yards of fabric. That's $50 a yard. Then you do that math, and then you find something on sample sale that is equivalent, or maybe $1,000 more, but it's a brand new piece of furniture that might last a lot longer. So you just have to really make that decision whether or not the piece is sentimental, which is very important to us because we love that, or if the shape is special or something you're drawn to about it. If the answer is no, I would say start fishing around, especially now, because there are so many great finds. And the trick sometimes too, when you want to make sure you like the fabric, obviously. So even if you go to find something vintage, always keep in mind if the fabric is if it says it's brand new or in great condition and it's a color you like, that's always better, because then it's a better deal than having to have it, labor for recovering it and yardage and so forth.
That's a really good
But
question, because a lot of us have that in our
yeah.
homes for sure. Rachel, what would you like to ask our design goddesses today?
Hi, ladies. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, all of us live in the city, and a lot of, houses, if you are fortunate enough to live in a house in the city, it's only 25 feet wide. And it's funny because a lot of the, when I say newer construction, even like 30, 40 years, a lot of them have, your formal living room, your formal dining room, a wall, a kitchen, and a great room. And it's like, and I find that we don't use 50% of our space. We never use that formal living room and dining room, and we all end up sitting around the counter. And like, if you could ideally, like, since so many homes in the city are in that layout, like, what do you envision to make those homes like more welcoming, or even if you could like knock down walls, like what would you do with this space? Like, how do you optimize these small spaces?
Georgeann, can you answer that?
Sure. We play around a lot with layout, and you're right. A lot of front rooms are merely for passing through for a lot of people, and then become a dumping ground for coats and whatnot. So we try to bring a draw in. Recently, I bought Annie Leibovitz's huge gallery book that's on a stand, and place it in a corner of a living room, and bring in something that people might want to be drawn in. Make cabinets on the fireplace wall with books, coffee table books, so that everyone can be drawn in, and give them a reason to want to go to that room. So we did a condo recently, like a 5,000 square foot condo, where the family had me over and said, we're all living in this one room in the house, and can you make it more user friendly? So we literally like changed every room but the kitchen layout, and now they say they really use every room in the house. So a lot of people are finding themselves only in the kitchen, so trying to find a draw to get you in the other rooms, like whether turning your front area into a library, your dining room can be an office / dining room with, so just try and optimize what each room is used for.
And I'm going to ask a question about paint color. Paint color. So we talked about that.
Mhm.
How, like,
paint can be so transformative.
right.
Pretty much.
So Georgeann helped me with so many times that I called her about a paint color, because I had to suddenly make that decision and going through all those colors. And she pushed me for my son's room to pick, I don't know if you remember, but it's actually similar, Rachel, to the color of the room that you're in. It's a dark, deep blue. And there was no way I was going to do that. I was like, no. Like, it has to be light. I mean, even here in the office, it's like, this is a wood, but the walls are dark brown. Like, I was so against dark colors because I thought it would totally darken and make the room smaller. But actually, everything popped. Like, I'm looking at Rachel's background, and that picture is popping off the wall. So what do you say about paint colors, maybe perhaps with trends, as well as like stepping out of your box? Like, because being a grateful goddess, a lot of it is discovering that perhaps you may not feel comfortable doing something, but once you do it, it gets easier, and perhaps it's exciting and challenging for you. So Stephanie, what do you feel about paint colors?
You know what? I love this question so much, because that is one area, especially if you don't have a big budget, that can make a space just come to life. And I think 15 years ago, I did my house, and I did a black, my floors are black, and then my library is black, and I have a black ceiling, and I lacquered the whole thing black.
Wow.
And everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And it's a really small space. And every time, and Georgeann can attest to this, I have parties, everybody is just like in that space, and it's, pretty small because it's cozy. So to your point, it's, can seem really scary, but it really can create such a mood. And the rest of my house is white. So it's kind of like the center of my home is this really dark room, and then the rest of the house is white. So you don't be afraid. I think also within entries in Chicago with our with doors, it's fun to, if you're too afraid to do the walls, paint the doors a dark color. I think it's really dramatic when there's a hallway and you don't just see a bunch of plain white doors just marching down the hall, and you pick a really great color. Like it can be a medium gray, it doesn't have to be black, you know, it could be something, it could even be a color that you have in some furnishing that you want to bring out. And if you just paint the doors or the window frames in a room, that can just add so much drama and so much personality to a space. And also with your baseboards, like on a lot of the entries, if you go on our website, Parisian Classic, you'll see like the baseboards are really lacquered a dark color, and then the closet doors in the entry are the same color, and then the rest is something else. So it really is fun to play around, and just don't be afraid, because you know what, it's so easy. If you end up not loving it or the color's a little off, it's so easy just to put another coat of another color on.
It's true.
Not like wall covering where you pay a lot of money for the labor to have someone install it, and you know, then you don't like it. So it really can add a lot, I have to say. And I think if you look at our website, you'll see that we love to use paint as a dramatic point in our design.
I think my mom was ahead of the game, because my bedroom growing up had one wall that was red, and it was I thought it was crazy, but I loved rainbows. So my bedding was rainbow. So it kind of worked, right? But like my friends would come over and what is with the red wall? Like it was so weird. But anyways,
you're bringing up a really good point too. You don't have to paint the whole room the color. You could have a accent wall and start there. And it's, you know, that's great. She was ahead of herself.
I guess she was. So goddesses, do you have any other questions that you'd like to add? Dina.
How big, how small do you take clients? Will you do just a kitchen renovation, or is it bigger than that?
That's a good question. Typically, we like to work on a whole project, and the majority of our homes today are a lot of projects from ground up, but then we'll get an interesting submission or call of something much smaller, and that ends up you just have a gut feeling that it could end up being something more. But we tend to work on whole houses, someone either building a new house or gut renovations, but occasionally we'll get a call for, you know, I just need to I'm becoming an empty nester, and I want to, you know, change some rooms around, and we'll take those jobs, and then the next week they'll say, can you come to my summer house? And just I try and go with the gut and see if it'll be an interesting project, interesting person to work with, and go from there. But it's hard to do. I think I sometimes think it's not an ideal project when someone calls and just says, oh, I've got to change my daughter's room. I feel like you don't really get the full benefit. I don't really get as much satisfaction from just, you know, one room. Mm-hmm. So we try and steer away from
I would love
project.
that
Go
too.
ahead.
So recently, I actually love sometimes getting the smaller jobs that aren't ground up, because the gratification at the end, the results come in so much quicker for me, and I love seeing it come to life. So I recently had a project where she had purchased all of her furniture, and they were all kind of like, it was very monochromatic, beautiful home, had authentic bones, an old home, and she wanted personality. So I had a riot doing this house, because she was open to, at first I thought, is she going to be more conservative because her furnishing was really safe? And we had so much fun getting wall covering, adding fabrics to her. Like she had dining chairs that she wanted more personality. We added a banding on the bottom, added incredible Philip Jeffries wall covering, added some molding to the ceiling and so forth. So I do have to say, like, I personally really enjoy sometimes that really quick turnaround where you can see the results fast, versus having to wait over a year for a project to, you know, come to life. So I like taking, I think I agree with Georgeann, it's not really beneficial, it's one room, but if someone calls me and says, you know, I really need personality in my house, I don't know what to do, I've purchased all these things, can you come in? I do enjoy those kinds of projects as well.
And then Stephanie, I saw photos of that project. It made Stephanie in such a short time gave that house some soul. But then a couple weeks later, the family bought a house, I think in Montana.
We had a house in Montana already. So originally when they called, they had a house in Montana, but they said, no, we've got this house. Can you start with our house in Hinsdale? Which actually is a fun, a lot of times when people hire designers, there's a little bit of obviously trepidation if you've never worked with one before, and to make sure that your styles mesh. So sometimes we do get calls like that, and they say, we've got this big house we want you to work on, but can you come to our main house and kind of start there? And then you get a feel for how you work together, and they get to see what we're capable of. And now, I think in a month I'm going to assuming COVID's pretty bad in Montana right now. When COVID is safer there, we're going to go to Montana and work on that project. So
that's great.
To Georgeann's point, things always seem to snowball and lead to something else. And just recently had another client that was one of our first clients that had everything she said was so sweet, because she was like, when you and Georgeann worked on my house, it's timeless. It's probably one of our very first, Georgeann, probably 15 years. And she came back to us and said, here's my bedroom. I need some chairs and I need to add on. So we definitely do a lot of that with our existing clients all the time, where, it might be just one piece of furnishing, or they want to change a fabric on a piece of furniture. So I think, always don't be afraid to call a designer, even if it's something small, because we also have design assistants that help us out. So if you have like some, a one room, like we just did a little boys room that we'd worked on, and one of my designers went over there and kind of took over that project. I overseed it, but it's like, I think you shouldn't be afraid to call and ask for help for smaller things.
Thank you. Alyssa, you raised your hand. Do you have a question?
I did. I raised my hand. I have to say, I'm so in awe of the fact that you guys have been in business together and been friends for so many years, that your friendship started back in college, and X number of years later, which seemed like a lot, you're still, working together. And, I hear so many stories of, partnerships breaking up because, we just grow in different directions. We kind of evolve differently. So I'm so, it's so amazing to hear this, but what's the secret to your success of working together, especially in a line of work that's so personal, right? That sort of speaks to your own tastes and obviously your clients as well. But what's the secret?
One of the things I think about Stephanie and I is we're so different in so many different ways, but at our core, I think we have very similar hearts. And she is the more business-minded of the two of us. I think they had more of a marketing, finance type degree, and is very meticulous.
No, I did not. But that's okay.
Okay. Up until maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, we started having an accountant do all our bookkeeping. But for many years, Stephanie did all the financials. And I tend to, be a little more free-spirited, and like Stephanie's a little more business, has more of the business head, and that's always complimented, but a good compliment. But I think we have different strengths, and we just, are obviously extremely loyal to one another. And I celebrate all our differences. But I think really, ultimately, we just really are passionate about what we do. We're very passionate about people in general, and we love working together. And I am amazed sometimes. We've been through a lot of ups and downs through the years.
For sure.
I mean, we've seen each other through everything. I remember, my daughter will be 21 this month. I remember, working while I was pregnant, and Stephanie helping me. And then we brought me along to some job sites early on. And so the longevity never really surprises me. It always surprises a lot of people. I remember one time we had a client. We were, I think, at her summer house in Traverse City. And she said, at the end of a workday, she said, just marvel how different you are. I was like slathering on the tanning oil, and Stephanie had a big sun hat on. And so just from the little minutia things like that, like she has me shaded at all times, and I like welcome the sun. And Stephanie's fashion, and I tend to be, Stephanie dresses like, beautifully every day, and I tend to like, be the opposite some days, and it just, we're totally different, but it always has worked amazingly well. And we've had, very few times we don't see eye to eye, and it's kind of a miracle, really.
But you both seem so positive, and you both seem to tap in to the person's personality and to help them. Like when I said, I loved your answer to that question, Stephanie, about thinking of places that you feel comfortable in. Like I've been in certain restaurants or certain hotel lobbies or different spaces, other people's homes, where I just look around and I'm like, I love this. And I may think, oh, I can't afford to do it. But then I look and I'm like, but I can do this paint color, or I can add that touch of flower or that piece of artwork. So I do feel like you both really tap into that person's personality and help them try and figure out their design style, for sure.
I think if you don't love people, and you have to be intuitive also to know when to kind of push them and when to kind of draw back, because a lot of times you already know the answers in your head, and then you can see they're a little squeamish, so you just show them a little bit of what you can do, and then you add on to that. But just to answer that question from my perspective, I think what holds us together a lot is trust in each other, as far as the core of what we know. We both know that we really respect each other's taste. So now that we've grown so much, we both tend to kind of manage our own projects. And we used to work really solely together in the way back when era, when we were greener. But I think there's always this very much mutual respect for each other that is really essential in a partnership. And, I think we trust that each project's going to be beautiful. I don't doubt that when Georgeann's working on something, it's not going to be reflection of Leo Deigns. And I think we do have similar aesthetic in a lot of ways, and we're both super creative. And when Georgeann said I was a marketing and finance major, that made me laugh. I was creative writing art, but I was an imposter at a marketing firm once, and that's where our business started. I was an imposter at a marketing firm, and I got let go because they got bought out by somebody else, and I was horrified and scared. And I kind of pushed Georgeann. I said, Georgeann, let's do this. And she was working at Shabby Chic. And so we tested out a couple jobs together, and I had a client in Evanston. And, the husband had a certain taste. She had a certain taste. I said, Georgeann, let's start here. We got paid maybe $10 an hour to help a friend. And went to this home together when Maggie was first born. And the husband and wife were so happy because we listened to both of them, which can be a tricky situation, and kind of took from what they were saying and made them both happy, which can be hard sometimes, especially if the couple isn't totally in sync. So I think from that point on, it just kept blossoming, and our love of people and our openness to listening to everyone, and our intuitive qualities, and knowing when to push and come back, because we're very sensitive. And I think that's a lot to do with it, because pushy never is the great quality when you push people too hard,
Yeah.
So you'll be able to read your audience.
Well, Georgeann encouraged, I wouldn't say pushed, but encouraged me to pick this darker color. And she said, just like the same thing, like, if you don't like it, you can paint it different. And when my son came home to it, he was like, I love it. Like, it was great. So,
no, I was actually going to ask, but you already answered, Stephanie, about how you took something that's like a passion and a love of yours and actually turned it into your career. And I think that's a really tricky pivot point for a lot of people. And I have to
add to that. I really do have to add to that. And this is what I have to say, especially because this is empowering people. That's what you're doing, Karen. And I wanted to tell you, I am the scaredest person on earth. And had I not been pushed out of this marketing agency, I was starting to work with Georgeann while I was still working there, but it really opened up everything, because I was afraid, I was scared, I had to make money. Georgeann and I took a leap of faith in each other, and we were green at that point. I mean, when you're creative, you've got that ability always, but we didn't have all our subcontractors lined up, and we had a lot to learn about the industry. And I really have to tell anyone out there, just really listen to your heart. And as Georgeann and I said, it was really clear as day when we were young what we loved, right? We were rearranging rooms. Georgeann had monogram towels that she brought to camp. She had the prettiest camp, sheets and everything. I think you have to listen to your heart. You really do. And life is so short. Do what you love, and I swear you'll be successful. It's so true. I know it's so cliche, but it really is.
No, we talk about that all the time. We talk about the fear and roadblocks, and so many of our guests have encouraged us to just leap and to just try. And it's never a mistake, because you can always, we call, a happy accident. You can always redo or repivot, or, especially now with COVID, you guys have had to probably pivot a little bit with what you're doing, right?
We've never been busier, honestly.
Really?
Through COVID, we work 7 days a week.
I mean,
we haven't had a day off. This is the closest to the day off we've had, I think, since the
That's
started.
amazing.
Yeah.
Tons of everyone's getting summer houses. They want to get a guest house out of town. I'm have 3 projects in the New Buffalo area right now.
To answer your question, we did pivot, but we've had ups and downs in our business. I remember 2009 was so scary, and I was like, okay, what do we do during this time when we don't have any jobs? And I was scared, and I thought, okay, let's focus on something that's going to help our business and do a website, which, really think of all those things you can do to help your business while you're down, and the things you don't have time to do, So we have had ups and downs, and we have had a really nice influx of clients and trustworthy clients that come back too.
So if our listeners want to reach out to you to have a consultation, of course, what is your website that they can go to, or perhaps a way that they can contact you, and what would your services be, like an initial consultation type of thing?
So if you go on our website, they can email us on the website. It's info@leodesignschicago.com, but our website is leodesignschicago.com, and we also have an Instagram account too, so you can kind of see the current projects we're working on. And we'll answer any of your questions. So we have a little guideline sheet there, the questionnaire about what you're looking for. And then Georgeann and I will usually follow up, or Sarah, our design director, will follow up.
That's awesome. I hope that people will reach out to you. I'm sure they will, after just even this little taste test of what you do and your style, and how you really, your passion, and how you tap in to each person's personality. And I always think of Dorothy clicking her heels and saying, there's no place like home.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone listening out there, there really is no place like home. So thank you very much, Design Goddesses, Georgeann and Stephanie, for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses.
Thank you. So fun, Karen. It's so fun to be with all of you today.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.